Uh, so my name is Nick Brewer. I'm the Artistic Programming Director at the League of Canadian Poets. We're here for how to run events with Bänoo Zan. I'm very, very excited for this workshop, so I won't speak too much. But I do have, our preamble. The League, if you're here, you're familiar, but I'm going to say it anyway. We're Canada's only national professional poetry organization, and our mission is to support poets and poetry in Canada. We do this through awards, funding, advocacy, and other programs that help get poets into the eyes of readers and poetry into the hands of people who love it. Um, I also am going to share my personal land acknowledgement. I'm tuning in from Kitchener, which is located on the Haldimand Tract. This is the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee and Mississauga Anishinaabe nations, as well as of the Chinantan peoples, a people entirely eliminated by the colonization of this land. This land was originally belonging to Six Nations, who have less than 5% of what the Haldimand Tract used to be. Six Nations is in active litigation against both Ontario and Canada in researching land claims and researching the history of the 95% of land that was lost to the First Nations since the 1740, I believe, when the Haldimand Treaty was established. I also want to mention that the League recognizes the historical and ongoing colonial significance of our organization name, and we acknowledge that not all members of our community identify with the term Canadian. We support these members and their right to self-identify while still having access to the programs and services offered by the League. And finally, I'm going to introduce Bänoo, our facilitator today. So Bänoo Zan is a poet, translator, essayist, and poetry curator with over 300 published pieces and 3 books, including Songs of Exile and Letters to My Father. She is the founder of Shabashare Poetry Night, Canada's most diverse and brave poetry open mic, inception in 2012. It is a brave space that bridges the gap between communities of poets from different ethnicities, nationalities, religions or lack thereof, ages, genders, sexual orientations, abilities, poetic styles, voices, and visions. Bänoo is the co-editor of the international poetry anthology Woman, Life, Freedom, Poems for the Iranian Revolution, to be published by Guernica Editions in 2025. Welcome, Bänoo.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks to the League of Canadian Poets for making this webinar possible. To all of you who are attending the event today, and also to future viewers. I would sometimes share my screen, like right now. I'm sharing the screen, but you will see that this is about how to run poetry events. How to run poetry events has been made possible by the League of Canadian Poets. And I also owe thanks to every organizer and every community organizer whose events I've been attending or even have been inspired by. Not necessarily only poetry organizers. There are different literary groups and different artistic groups that I've been attending, and I've been inspired by many. To start with, if I would like to give you an exercise. So I would like to ask you to plan the lineup for a poetry event. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. What at this point I'm interested in is for you to write down the names of the poets you want to invite as featured readers to the event. Let me know when you are ready to move on.
I know it can be hard to see the
Good
chat.
question. Yeah, I no, actually, I want them to just this lineup is just for you because I have certain questions after that, but you just keep it to yourself. Welcome, Lisa. Just to update you, we are doing an exercise. You're planning a lineup for an event that we would like to organize.
Thanks so much, Bänoo.
Thank you. Okay, awesome. So it seems that people are, everybody has planned the lineup of the event that they want to organize. All right, great. Thank you very much. Let's move on. So now look at the lineup that you have created. I have some questions for you, but answer these questions just for yourself. Do not share the answers with anyone, including me, because if people truly want to know how you answer these questions, they would not need to ask you. They will observe you in action. They will pay attention to the events you have created or will create. So my questions are, do the features look like you? Do the features think like you? Do the features write like you? Are they in your circles of friends or lovers, past, present, or desire? Wait a minute. Why exactly are you organizing events? What is your agenda, vision, or purpose? This brings us to the next topic, the why versus the how. The why is more important than the how. The why determines the how. Now, I would like you this time to share your answers with me. Why are you organizing events? Or why would you like to organize events? I would like to type the keywords here. Please feel free to let me know or let us know. You could put them in the chat or speak. Good word. Necessity. Very good. Fill in the gaps. Thank you. Thank you so much. Promote poetry. Not, I mean, my typing is not very well, but I hope I could, you know, promote poetry locally. Include people. I'm so excited by the answers that you are providing. I'm probably not seeing all of them. To share work, awesome. To share words with colleagues. Family, etc. Promote meaningfulness and encouragement. Give opportunities to new poets. Promote meaningfulness and encourage mental health. Very good. And so many other good things. And I hope I could save the chat and add them eventually, all of them today. I'm just trying to read because you are all sharing so much wonderful ideas to promote poetry, pay tribute to poets, necessity, fill the gap, to reach people via free and low-cost events, include people, all of them very wonderful ideas to bring poetry to the public sphere. Yes, to the town hall, to give opportunities to new poets. Okay, yes. Thank you very much. Yes, sure, Diana. Thank you. Thank you so much. These are all wonderful ideas. I'm so happy that I'm among you. In answering the how, please consider the world. Think about the world, not just your own town, city, country, or continent. Think about political, social, artistic, and other influences your series may have at present or in future. Think about human rights, artistic and cultural freedom, diversity and belonging. Think about peace, freedom, and humanity. You see, these keywords are going to appear again and again in my presentation. Think about dissident, imprisoned, tortured, assassinated, and silenced writers everywhere. The why determines your professionalism and impact. In terms of professionalism, separate personal from professional. The artists that you invite should be selected based on professional standards, not because you are sexually or romantically interested in them, or are friends with them, or went to the same school with them, or any number of other personal criteria. The audience features your team and the literary community are not your dating pool. Treat them as colleagues and fellow thinkers, artists and comrades. Expect professionalism from the poets you invite, from your team, and from the attendees. The group will be as you expect it to be. It is your job to educate your team, features, and the audience. Verbalize your expectations. Put them in writing. Share them with featured poets when you invite them. Share them with your team members before events, when you interview, recruit, and train them. Also, share them with the audience at the events. Do not ignore signs of unprofessional behavior. Do not ignore complaints. Establish your own creative long-term strategies. Your professionalism will depend on many factors. One is your vision and values, but the other is your education. By education, I mean many things, such as your literary education, your awareness of literary history and canon, trends and schools, what you read, if you read widely, if you are interested in local, national, or global literature. Your education as a literary host and organizer depends on your attending other events as a participant or observer. You're being on good terms with fellow organizers. I can't stress it enough. Your fellow organizers are your teachers and your comrades and are in this with you. Your network is important. You need to be constantly connecting with fellow writers, organizers, and hosts in person and online. Your online presence and network is very important. Your leadership ability and skills are important too. It's important if you are an independent, creative thinker, problem solver, and visionary. What is also important, and I consider as part of your education, is your activist skills. Attend some protests to learn from fellow activists. Your education should include an awareness of literature, politics, justice, freedom, human rights, and community. In terms of impact, artistic activities have various kinds of impact. Think about the impact you are aiming for. Include it in your mission statement. Think about different kinds of impact: cultural, artistic, political, social, regional, national, and international. In the literary community, there are roughly two groups operating. One group subscribes to freedom of speech, and the other to diversity. Do not sacrifice one for the other. Freedom of speech is the bedrock of imagination and creation. It is the artist's and the human's universal, inalienable right to take risks in thought and expression. It is the first right citizens lose when dictatorships take over. It is necessary for our work, but it is not enough. This brings us to diversity. Diversity seeks to acknowledge excellence in whoever possesses it. Diversity guarantees that writers do not lose opportunities because of their minority identities. And what does diverse mean, by the way? Diverse means diverse from you, whoever you are and however you identify. If you belong to minority X and you predominantly feature people who belong to minority X, you are not being diverse. You are minoritizing everyone else at the expense of your own group. You are creating an ethnic, racial, gender, or otherwise exclusive club. Diversity should serve the cause of peace, democracy, equality, human rights, freedom of speech, expression, and imagination. Diversity should challenge dictators, religious and secular. Diversity should be against oppression by your own community as well as outsiders. It should be anti-dictatorial as well as anti-colonial. Diversity is not cosmetic or superficial. It is fundamental. If your diversity does not address human rights abuses in dictatorships, it is at the service of dictators. It won't be diverse enough. It won't be subversive enough. It will be another exclusive club. It will privilege superficial, easy to recognize features or values. It won't shake the world to its core. It won't transform you into a visionary leader. Diversity means that no one group monopolizes or dominates the event. Things go wrong when there is a majority of one kind or other. Those who are not represented feel that they do not belong if this happens. A truly inclusive event would be the one where a perfect stranger would feel that they belong. Go out of your comfort zone to welcome the outsider, the outcast, the stranger, the one with an accent, the one with a different identity. When you are hosting an event, make yourself available to people who you don't know, so that they can approach you. Don't spend all your time catching up with old friends or acquaintances and those you already know. Still better, approach strangers first. Welcome them, especially visible and audible minorities. One secret to become a better host is to go to events you do not organize or feature at. Events that even your friends do not organize or feature at. Go alone. Go as a perfect stranger. Sit among the audience. Observe, enjoy, learn, and be inspired. Note, learning is different from imitating or copying other organizers or even denouncing them. Learning means discovering what is missing and creating a space for the missing elements to exist. But learning also means to building up on those elements that exist. When what the world needs meets what you care about, you create a legacy. But the world's needs, as well as your own priorities, constantly change. So, the mission statement and the focus of the event may also change and grow. True inclusion facilitates peace, respect, love, solidarity, and better writing. By better writing, I mean the writing that is more imaginative, bolder, more profound, and impactful. How you run events depends on why you run them, as well as other factors, such as your immediate literary environment, your lived experience, vision, networks, funds, spaces available, organizing experience and ability. Sit down and write a mission statement, an elevator pitch for that event. Revisit it often and change it as you change and grow. Memorize it and share it with absolutely everyone you meet. Stranger, friend, relative, everywhere you go. If you're not prepared to do so, it is a sign that you don't believe in it, or you don't believe it's an important activity, or you don't have enough self-confidence to own it, or you're not running the event for the public or for the strangers. The public includes everyone, those you know and those you don't know. In short, if you hesitate to share the mission statement with everyone, you are not ready. As a side note, you may have noticed that I have prepared very minimalistic PowerPoint for this presentation, and often I disable the PowerPoint because you need to own what you create. You need to stand by this. You need to put your face to your activity. As a literary host, again, you need to be visible. Take ownership of the event. Be the speaker and the leader. Immediately after that, I'm going to share the PowerPoint again. Another question that we have in the literary community is the question of what kind of space we want to create. A safe space or a brave space. My definition of a safe space is a space that is free from sexual harassment, misogyny, racism, xenophobia, homophobia, and discrimination of any kind. This, of course, is a utopian goal. You can never fully achieve it, but you can work towards it. The same is also true about a brave space. You can try to achieve it, but you can never completely and fully achieve it. Attendees are your guests. Honor your guests. Keep your eyes and ears open. Watch the people at the event to pick nonverbal cues about their characteristics. Do not ignore your observations or other people's complaints. Act immediately. Do not let things pile up. Investigate allegations of sexual harassment. Talk to the person who's accused of harassment, racism, homophobia, etc. But before that, if someone's attitude makes you uncomfortable, do not feature them, even if you cannot articulate the reason why. You usually have a good sense of who people are, especially if you yourself are a minority. Keep observing them in person and online. It is easier not to schedule someone as a feature than it is to retract the feature invitation or to put out public statements about them not being welcome in your space. But safety is not the goal. It is the means that allows you to realize the goal. People go to poetry events to hear poetry. Hopefully, unforgettable, earth-shattering poetry. Don't forget that. This brings us to the second type of space that we call a brave space, roughly based on the values of freedom of expression. A brave space is a space where speaking truth to power is possible, where you as a minority can stand up and question the majority position, when you can be original, where political and artistic dissents are welcome. You as the host, are the facilitator of open-ended conversations in poetry. A safe space is not a space where you never hear what you don't like. In fact, poetry should tell the truth and make you uncomfortable. So reading poetry that contains unpopular ideas is perfectly fine. Poetry spaces should be places where you are challenged artistically, intellectually, and emotionally, so that you're motivated to take action and improve the world, so that you are persuaded of the validity of a different side of an argument, so that you become a better thinker and a better poet, so that you are transformed, so that you then go on and transform the world. I tell the audiences at Shab Sher that the answer to a poem is another poem. In your poetry, you can be angry, nasty, nice, happy, sad, iconoclastic, anything. We understand that the speaker in the poem is not the poet. The speaker in the poem is a persona. But outside your poetry, you have to be a decent citizen. So when you're not reading poetry, you still have to be avoiding all the unacceptable behaviors. The other crucial factor that we need to consider, and we have been discussing in our communities, is accessibility. Now, accessibility has many different features, and many people recommend different things. Factors to consider if you are preparing an in-person event is the accessibility features of the venue and the space. So if possible, consider spaces that have as many accessibility features as possible so that more people can attend the event. But then another consideration comes in, and that is affordability. Accessible spaces may be more expensive. In that case, think about resources that allow you to run without much dependence upon grants, such as an admission fee. This may make the event more inaccessible for people short of funds. Now, some people at this point might suggest online events. When we consider accessibility, we have to ask ourselves questions. When we say accessible, what do we mean? Accessible to whom? There are some groups of people who are not considered in our discussions of accessibility. For example, political writers. Writers who criticize powerful people, organizations, politicians, wealthy or famous people, writers who expose corruptions of different kinds, etc. The second group are self-critical writers. Now, these two groups overlap. Political writers and self-critical writers a lot of times overlap. But by self-critical writers, I mean writers critical of dictators in their countries of origin or in their own culture. Writers who are political refugees or have left their countries of origin because they are critical of the regimes or systems in their homelands. Self-critical writers can also be writers, minority writers, who are critical of minority religions, cultures, and communities, their own. Writers who criticize their own community for oppressive practices such as misogyny, homophobia, etc. These two groups, political writers and self-critical writers, do not like online events because virtual events may make it easy for agents of oppressive regimes to track them down. They do not like to participate in events that are live streamed or pre-recorded. Most literary spaces in the world are not accessible or welcoming to political dissidents critical of oppressive regimes and communities. In the West, political dissidence doesn't have the consequences it has in authoritarian regimes. It doesn't cost you your life. Consider the presence of refugees and immigrants from all over the world here in Canada and the West, and their noticeable absence from the literary scene. And you will see that the literary scene is more inaccessible culturally and politically than it is physically. Censorship is the greatest barrier to accessibility. In Canada and in the West, it is mostly practiced as peer censorship and self-censorship. Make the poetry scene accessible to the creators of significant subversive literature from around the world. Another big concern that event organizers have are the expenses. If you're running in-person events, how to meet the expenses. If online events, again, the same. If you would like to pay your features, how do you do that? How do you generate the funds to do that? There are, I would say, three different strategies for raising funds. One is grants. So grants in Canada are offered by different granting bodies. Canada Council for the Arts, Ontario Arts Council, and Toronto Arts Council. Again, they are distributed through sometimes different organizations, such as the League of Canadian Poets, the Writers' Union of Canada, and others. The grants meet some of your expenses, though they are unpredictable and they are seasonal. You need to apply at the right time. And you also need someone to sit down and write the grant and also the report, or pay someone to write the grants for you. They may not cover all your expenses, so you will still need other strategies. My ethical concern about grants is something different. Is that sometimes you compromise your vision. You will adapt your vision to that of the majority. You roughly know who is going to process your application, and then you write your grant application in a way to appeal to them. Not because you necessarily believe in those ideas, but because you need the money. The other source of revenue, so-called, would be a door charge, an admission fee. That could be an independent source of income. Again, it is unpredictable. It depends on the turnout. You can decide about the the amount based on your needs and what the community can afford. It sort of keeps the series, if you're running a series, it keeps it afloat. You do not need to formulate your vision in a way that appeals to granting bodies, but you will need someone to work the door, to sit at the door and accept the admission. But this poses another kind of challenge. And the challenge is you need to articulate your vision in a way that meets the needs of your audience and fills the gap in the literary scene. And also expresses your true values. Hopefully, they're not self-serving values. For this, you need to possess the intellectual, artistic, and social justice clarity and eloquence to articulate your vision and the courage to speak publicly about it. This requires you to be a leader, opening yourself up to critique and question. The danger, though, depending on your intended audience, would be either you might resort to populism or elitism. The third source of funding or raising funds could be other means, such as having fundraisers. Fundraisers are more time consuming than the above two sources of generating income. And they need special fundraising skills. Again, you may have to compromise your vision. In this case, because you need to adapt your message to reach people with money. In other words, you need good marketing skills, which are not always in line with the spirit of poetry. I have prepared a document, so-called a kind of text for this presentation today. So this document includes different sections. One section was the section I shared with you so far, sort of a text of the speech. The second half includes a number of what I would call share documents. Over the years, I started compiling, writing, and sharing these documents. Some of them are things like invitations to features, and some of them were written with me thinking that one day somebody might show up and become a co-organizer at the level that I am at Shabishir. This has not happened so far, but anyways, I have the documents. And after this, I have some references in this document that I have compiled. And those are called references because they are links to interviews and articles that I have written about Shabishir or interviews I got for Shabishir or essays I have been writing about and have been published over the years that express my ideas about culture, literary scene, censorship, and other relevant issues. At the end of that document, I have also shared my contact details, my email and my social media handles, as well as social media handles of the Shabishir. This, and at the end, I could send this document to you through, I guess, the chat function. Probably I could share it with you. But I want you to know that I don't think of these as, prescriptive. I'm not telling you how you should run your events. These are just the things that I do. feel free to be inspired, to change, to adapt to your own immediate circumstances, as I said, to your own vision. But I would like to just at least share one document before I even ask you that we should stop and have a Q&A. And this is a longish document about how to create an event with 2 features and publicize it. There's more to it. Again, this has been written a while ago. But in any case, how to create an event with 2 features and publicize it. Start at least 2 months ahead. Now, when I say start at least 2 months ahead, I mean if you have secured the venue. The venue comes even before that. This is where you know you have been in negotiation with a certain space and they've said yes to you. They've said they're available. The venue is available for that certain date. Or if you are a series, in my case, I approach the venues like well ahead of time before the new year to secure dates for the whole year. It takes somewhere between 6 to 4 months to come to an agreement a lot of times with different venues. But it's after that. So you have the space. You start at least 2 months ahead. You pick the first potential feature. This feature needs to be a person of color. The poets we feature should be serious and professional poets in their fields, seriously networking and improving their skills, well connected with the community. If you have very few friends in common with them, maybe they're not good potential features. At this point, I'd like to stop and bring this to your attention. That if you don't have a professional social media presence, you probably cannot run a long-running series. That's an open series to the public. That is not a vanity event. By vanity event, I mean an event where you feature yourself and your friends or feature people from your own community. So if you really want to truly create an event or a series where everyone feels they belong and are represented, you need to be connected with everyone, as I said. So it means that, for example, check your social media links and see how many friends do you have in common with me. On Facebook, you would be a good potential series organizers if you have at least 500 friends in common with me. So also, now I continue. Also, do not invite a poet you have recently connected with, unless they are stellar. Observe them for a long time in different events and on social media. Invite them to your event and see if they support other poets or not. Immigrant poets may not be well connected with your communities or circles. For them, you could make an exception if they are professional enough. Immigrant and refugee poets are among the most underrepresented poets. Contact the poet. Give them a deadline to reach back to you. Refer to another document, invitation to feature. If they say yes, ask them for their bio, photo, cell phone number, email, and social media profiles. If they say no, or if they do not respond by the deadline, you can send them another reminder. If they say no, you stop. But if they don't respond, you can send them a reminder. Then if they don't respond, you can approach another poet of color. Repeat until you have confirmed one poet of color. This poet of color can have other minority or mainstream identities as well, intersectional identities too. Now approach another poet who should be different in terms of gender and ethnicity and not a friends of the first feature. Consider other factors such as national origin, disability, sexual orientation, religion, age, poetic style, spoken word or literary, etc. So in the end, the lineup needs to be one more male and one more female, at least one person of color. Remember, always give the features a deadline for responding to you and for sending the information. And don't be shy to send reminders. Once you have their information, send it to the person who creates posters, if there's another person who creates posters. The event poster can be uploaded to Facebook event page and other social media. I create events for the Facebook page and group after each month's event is finished, and then update the Twitter. I also advertise on Instagram and LinkedIn. I keep an email list and send a reminder to my contacts. I send instruction letters to features. Again, the instruction email to features may be included in this document as well. I send event information to listings as soon as possible. In Toronto, for example, there are websites that City of Toronto runs for events or things like that. Most listings need you to send information at least 3 weeks before the event. I usually send the information as soon as I have created the Facebook event because they also want a link to the event, which I do immediately after the night of the last event. For example, if we have an event on September 25th, I write a short report on LinkedIn and share it on my Facebook page, on the Facebook page of the Shab Share, and also Twitter and Instagram. Then I create the Facebook event page for the next event, usually the same night, but no later than the night after. So in this case, for example, not later than September 26th. Of course, it also depends on how busy you are with your job and your hours. But if you are running a monthly event, it's a good idea to create the event during at the latest, during the first weekend after the event. Send the event information listings again on the same day to many different listings that I keep. And then I go to each feature's Facebook page that I'm usually connected with and invite the mutual friends that we have. I invite the other friends that I have. I post on the features, publishers, producers, groups, and circles that they belong to, and or contact them. I post to the list of Facebook, Twitter, etc. I also have kept a list and update this list of different groups of interest. I use invite forms or models for this. I update the wording for every event. Depending on the features, I search social media posts and social media groups and post to the relevant pages. For example, if a feature is Maltese, I see if there are Maltese Facebook groups and pages and post to them as well. If a feature works with a creative writing group and organization, I contact them. If I know their publishers' names, I contact them. I keep doing this all through the month. For each event, I send an email to the volunteer team at the beginning of the month, asking them for their availability and asking them to respond, to confirm. I give them a deadline. I tell them to let me know if there is any change in their schedule during the month. and not wait for me to check on them again. I do check on them again. I also send reminders if I haven't received enough responses. Make sure you at least have one person to work the door and one photographer. It has happened that I've had to ask my personal friends or family to help me out with the event when I didn't have enough volunteers. Remember that as an organizer or host, you are responsible to pay the rent to the venue if this is part of your agreement, even if there are not enough participants to generate the amount that you need. If you're asking for donations or an admission fee. You're also responsible to pay the features. So do everything to make it well attended and a so-called success, for lack of a better word. If it is a failure, it is your responsibility. No one will be there to share the blame with you. I sent the volunteer group another email about 1 week before the event to check if there's any change in their schedule, to make sure that I have enough staff to run the event. I also do the same thing with the features, giving them last-minute reminders, how to prepare a set, giving them information about the venue and what things are good to consider when they are putting the feature set together, about the timing. I ask photographers not to post the event photos independently, but send them to me. I create an album. I share it on Facebook, and then I share the link on other social media with a few samples. All through the month, though, because our events are monthly, so I create the event information at the beginning of the month. All through the month, wherever I go on open mics, to different events, or wherever I feature, or I'm on panels, etc. In short, whenever I have a public appearance or I meet a new person or a person I know, I briefly talk about Shab Sher and invite people to attend. So here I want to take the opportunity to invite you to attend the next Shab Sher. On October 29th, Shab Sher features Rayan Haynes and Daniel Maluka at the Toronto Transact Club. We also have 20 open mic feature spots for poetry in any language. Join us and spread the word. Even if you can't attend, invite people who can, invite communities that might be left out. So we want everyone. Shab Sher belongs to absolutely everyone. There's no one who is an outsider at Shab Sher. A lot of times I'm the only outsider because I'm the only immigrant and the only Iranian. Sometimes, this was of course pre-COVID, I used to print little flyers and distribute it at the different events that I went to. And out of the money at the door, I also tell the features clearly about it. I put away the next month's rent and other expenses, or you might say this month's rent, whatever it is. I put away the rent and also the other expenses that we have, and then the rest is divided equally between the two features. We don't discriminate against one feature just because they are, a less experienced poet, and we don't pay celebrity poets more. No, we actually treat them equally. If the turnout is good, you can also save some money for future months when the turnout is low, or for special occasions such as our anniversary. We used to invite musicians for our anniversary, or for Nowruz, the Persian New Year, which is in March. Our anniversary is in November. Now, I guess this is a good time for me probably to stop and take some questions. What do you think? Or do you think I should go on?
I see some questions in the chat.
All right.
Um,
So,
so Sean McGarrigle had asked, this was when you were talking about determining who you would approach as a feature. And Sean McGarrigle asked if you could define serious. You were saying there should be a serious poet. And they said, do you mean
yeah,
professional?
yes, I mean professional. I mean, because, I use this word because, there was a point, a time that certain groups of poets were discriminated against, were not accepted into the mainstream poetry. For example, spoken word poets, because they did not have books, right? So I want to say that many hosts actually are literary poets themselves. They are like people who publish. So I just wanted to tell them, if they're in their own field, they are serious. Means a spoken word poet who gives excellent performances. Please consider them. Don't discriminate against them just because they are spoken word. Because I think we as literary poets can learn a lot from spoken word poets. And as a matter of fact, I should say that a lot of times I deliberately feature literary poets with the spoken word poets together, because I want them to. And a lot of times it has happened that they have been both impressed by the other person's performance, because the two groups have a lot to learn from one another. But unfortunately, they don't often go to the same events, and they don't often get the opportunity to be inspired by each other, right?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Bonnie.
Okay.
And I think
Thank you.
so. There's one more question in the chat, and then I think we could take just a little bio break for
Yes,
like
sure.
accessibility. But we'll quickly answer this and then maybe take a 5-minute break. Yolande asked, or perhaps might have been just chiming in to information that should be shared in advance of an in-person event. Yolande, feel free to clarify. And they wrote, what COVID safer protocols will be followed at the event? So I'm not sure, Yolande, if you were asking kind of like now what the environment is for COVID protocols. Curious about both. Right.
Yeah, very good. We have been at this event, the Transact Club. They had really good comprehensive COVID protocols all through. And even now that the website is going through, they're reconstructing their website, we still, even if they're not really imposing the protocols, I always bring like a box of masks and, or wipes or whatever for anyone who may wish to use. But I guess it depends on further than that. I know that there are some events that even now they're run at spaces that impose even more stricter measures, such as wearing a mask, even for writers who are reading on the open mic. Or featured readers, not even open micers. Featured readers are actually reading with the mask on. I'm not sure if this is really necessary, especially because, when you are speaking, when people who have hearing problems, if they can see your lips, you can be more understood, basically, just as people who lip read. So we don't impose those kinds of strict measures. We're not as strict, but we really encourage people to wear masks, and we also wiped the mic every time after somebody performed and things like that.
Thank you so much, Banu. It was really wonderful to be here and host this workshop. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone.